We're now going to have a look at online teaching and learning best practices. This, you have to keep in mind, is a blueprint. Not all of these tips will work for you, but I would advise you to keep to as much of these tips as you possibly can. If you're a newbie to this, start with blended teaching. If you've got a classroom in front of you, start by introducing video technologies and online technologies with your face-to-face classroom. That will help you to get used to the technologies. Okay? Understand your delivery platform or your LMS. Know what the features are. Go and tinker around with things. See what is possible. Network with your colleagues. Have discussions around the coffee machine and talk about what works in your subject and what doesn't work in your subject. You'll be amazed how much you can learn from your colleagues and how many things they come across in their day-to-day searches for solutions. Starting with the design, things to keep in mind when you start thinking of designing your course and start actually designing your course. Organize your content. Make sure that your content is very logical and it makes sense. Even to someone that's not familiar with your subject matter, they must be able to navigate through your course. Make the navigation as easy as possible. Don't click into pages that go into pages that go into pages that go into pages where you can get lost. Rule of thumb, 2 levels. Never go deeper than 2 levels, if at all possible. Then make sure that you list your dates, and list your dates separately from your content. This is dates like due dates for assignments, exam dates. If you have face-to-face virtual meetings, make sure that your students are aware of those dates and times. But because these things change every year and you don't want to go into every little section and change the dates, keep it as a separate page or a separate spot where you save those dates, so that once you get to the next year, you can easily just go and update the new dates. Make as much of your content available as you can as PDF, in PDF format. So save your Word documents, save your slideshows or whatever any content that you want to give to the students as PDF, but remember to keep the originals, your original files, save them as well, so that if you need to go and make a change, it's a lot easier to change a Word document than what it is to change a PDF. Design first, teach later. Don't build your airplane while you're flying it. The best practice is to design your course and make sure everything works before you get the students on board. You can also do a systematic rollout where you design, let's say, module 1, and then while they are doing module 1, design module 2, etc., etc. But your framework needs to be in place before you allow any student onto your learning management platform. Rethink your content in a creative way. We tend to think that everything needs to now be video. It doesn't need to all be video. There are some simulations that you might be able to use on another website. So rethink your content and rethink it creatively. First thing that you need to do, and this is why you need to have your plane already built, is create a video, make it a screen capture of your LMS, explaining to your students exactly where they will find what. So they've got a good orientation of how the LMS works. You don't want them to sit and figure things out. while they can actually be participating in learning. If you notice errors or someone brings errors to your attention, fix them immediately. If you've already got students in a course and you are changing something, let them know about those changes, because some students work faster than others. Some might have already memorized those errors. And keep a revision journal as you go through your course. Things that you notice and that you can do better, make notes of it, so that when you redesign for the next year, and you are going to need to redesign every year, add things, adjust things, make things better, new technologies that come along, new technologies that you become aware of. Keep a revision journal, one little book that you keep on making these notes. Next year I have to do that. Or you get feedback from a student and a student tells you, listen, you realize, that's a good suggestion. Make a note of it. Okay. Embed wherever possible. We tend to create a lot of links to, let's say, YouTube, that goes to an external website. It's not wrong to do that, but it's always better to try and keep as much of your content on the same page, not to navigate out to other spaces. Especially things like YouTube, because you end up watching videos that you were not supposed to watch, and you started off with an ICT problem and you end up watching two hedgehogs fighting in a sock or something like that. So keep your information together. And use technology intentionally. Don't use video just because you are using video. Decide on why are you using video and why is this the best platform to deliver that specific content. Don't throw technology at a problem. Identify the problem and search for the best technology. Okay. This would also change from year to year as you become aware of other tools that's available to you. And the three most important rules when you design is consistency, simplicity, and clarity. Keep everything consistent. Make sure that everything looks the same when a student goes through it. Make sure that it's simple to use, easy to navigate, and make sure that whatever you've got there is clear, as in crystal clear. Use polls to make sure, and surveys to make sure that your students understand exactly what you're talking about. Next thing that you probably haven't thought about is building a community. The success of an online course, especially a 100% online course, is very much based on having a strong community of users. Use icebreakers and exercises the way you would, or the way you should actually be doing in class, to get your students to interact with each other. That interaction, the peer-to-peer learning, is very, very important. And establish interaction norms. Make sure that your students know what is acceptable and what is not acceptable on your platform. What kind of language that can be used. When you create a discussion board, what are the limits of discussions that can happen in that discussion board? Set those norms and boundaries beforehand. But be active in your discussions. Go and look at what is being discussed in a topic on a discussion board. Make sure that you chip in every now and again. Make sure that you steer those discussions. And at the end of the discussions, close your discussion board and draw up a summary for the students. Create a platform where students can share their reflections and even their personal experiences, especially in topics where real life situations come into play. Make the learning very personal. And have regular wrap-up sessions. When you are busy with your design, you've got your topics and your modules, make sure that you have a wrap-up after each module that needs to be understood. And whatever you do, maintain a positive motivational tone. When you do your recordings of your videos, try and smile. Try and find a reason to smile. Even if you've got a little, go and buy yourself a little soft toy that sits and stares at you while you're doing your recordings. Because the more you smile, it comes across in your voice. That friendliness and that excitement comes across in your voice, and that's the way you keep your learners focused and keep their attention. So keep that in mind when you do your recordings. Make it as interesting and as happy and as light and as positive as possible. Then, effective, efficient delivery. Make sure that your delivery is scheduled. Make sure that your students know when to expect what. Here you can either have a self-paced course where students can move ahead if they want to, or you can use tools in your LMS to make sure that content only becomes available either at a certain date, or even better, a student can only access content once they have completed other sections. A good LMS should be able to do that automatically for you, but plan that rollout and that schedule of delivery, especially when you've got content that builds on content, and you don't want students to run ahead. Make sure that there's checks and balances. Use your announcements, and make sure those announcements not only appear on your web page but also go out to the students as emails. And save general responses. Remember that notebook I spoke about earlier. Create yourself a Word document. Things that you're going to explain this year. Next year you are going to explain them again. And if you've got a nice little database of answers to questions that you can just copy and paste, you're going to save yourself a lot of trouble. And keep folders on your computer for each of these classes, so that you know where to find these documents and things that you build up over the year. Use Dropbox, for instance, if you're going to share files. Look at technologies to help you and assist you with that. Then, avoid email dumps. If you end up with an open course and you've got 6,000 students attending, and you get 6,000 emails a day, you are going to want to commit suicide. So, ways to avoid getting too many emails. Discussion boards that you create, follow them and interact with your students on there so that they don't need to email you. Set virtual office hours. Set times that you tell the students, okay, I will be available on Skype on these days between these times. Remember that time schedule that you've got built in? So these students can have face-to-face discussions with you via Skype if they need to. It's much faster to explain something on a Skype than to try and explain it on an email that goes to and from and to and from. Okay. So set virtual office hours that they can contact you. Utilize technologies like Twitter, for instance, where you create a Twitter page for your subject and you can tweet out important information, and students can tweet back problems that they have. In other words, peer-to-peer learning, where if a student tweets something, someone else might be able to answer him before you even get the chance to do it. Once again, you just need to monitor those feeds. And use email filters. There are things that are going to be repetitive. Group them together in folders as they come in and send out a bulk answer. So think of creative ways of the way of how you can use email filters. And set turnaround times. Student must know that if they send you an email or communicate with you in whichever way, there's either a 24-hour, a 36-hour, or they need to know when they can expect an email back from you. So it's very important to set this beforehand so that expectation is met and you don't end up with students that moan about, no, you don't get back to me. Or a student that decides 3 o'clock in the morning he needs an answer now, and you haven't answered him by 9 o'clock the next morning, and now he wants to fight with you. And the day before the exam, if you ask your question the day before the exam, you're not going to get a response. And I keep on talking about discussion forums that you set certain times to. Also create a general discussion forum where students can talk amongst themselves mostly. Once again, you need to monitor that and chip in when you see they are losing the road. Creating rich content or sourcing rich content. When you use PowerPoints, never ever upload a PowerPoint without an audio narration. Try and narrate as much as you possibly can on anything that you do. Look for existing content. Source existing content that is out there. Don't go and reinvent the wheel. You're wasting time. See what is available, especially if you know you are not very exciting when you are delivering content. Go and look for exciting content that's already created. And try and use things like YouTube Edu, where you've got peer-reviewed content. Things like TEDx, where you've got talks about various topics. Scratch around the internet. There's lots and lots of things. Maintain an active online presence. You thought you were going to create an online course and you're going to put it there and you're going to walk away and it's going to happen by itself. That is not how online teaching works, I am afraid. Sorry to burst your bubble. It is something that you need to monitor constantly. First of all, start your course with a welcoming and explain to your students who you are and where you come from and what authority do you have to teach them what you are about to teach them. Okay. Also remember to make it friendly. Introduce each of your modules in a video where they can see your face. That introduction and that closing, make that as personal as possible. It makes the students just get to know you better and just associate with you with their learning. Like I said before, host virtual office hours where students can reach you via Skype or any of those technologies. And then do live online sessions either with webinars or Blackboard has got Collaborate built into it. Look at the tools that's available to you where you can have interactive classroom sessions with your students that are pre-scheduled. Those can also be recorded and made available to students that can't watch them at that specific time. But these you save for special occasions, like the end of module, where you want to have a total overall discussion, or a very difficult concept that you want to explain and get immediate feedback, get that interactivity. So use them wisely, or else you're going to end up spending all your time online. Then have a good grading strategy before you start your online course. Set rubrics and make sure that those rubrics are available to students, and make sure that a student understands how a rubric works. So do an explanation video of what a rubric looks like, so that students really know what a rubric is and how it is used. It also is a wonderful way for them to understand what you expect of them. Revision quizzes. Build in as much self-assessment and little revision quizzes and stuff as you can, so that there's constant self-evaluation from the student side. That way they will probably nag you less in any case. Like I said, self-evaluation is very important. Try and do as much project-based learning as you can, where you can involve as much of the students in groups and to work together and discuss things amongst themselves. Think of creative ways that you can do that. And use surveys and polls to get feedback from your students on how you are doing as a lecturer, how they are understanding the concepts that you are trying to explain to them, etc., etc. Use these tools constantly. Grading methods. This is always a problem that comes up in discussions when you talk about online and how do you assess someone in an honest way. Now, first of all, when you give feedback to your students on their grades, use annotations. There are various tools available where you can write on their digital essays, etc., etc. And make sure that you give feedback that is positive and upbuilding. And then you can also make use of video feedback. There you can just use your cell phone's camera and to each student record a quick message, which is a lot faster than doing annotations on an essay, for instance. Speak to that student. First of all, he's going to feel very special because he's getting a video personalized for him, so he knows that you are following what he's doing. And have your students build up portfolios. More and more companies out there are moving away from CVs. They're not interested in the pretty words on your CV anymore. They want to see what you have done and what you are able to do. So look at ways that students can use portfolios as a grading method. Use peer evaluation. Let the students evaluate each other. Let them grade each other. If they understand your rubric, they should be able to grade each other's papers. Then, finally we're here. Conclusion. Take baby steps. Don't try and make this perfect course the first time, because you're not going to be able to do it. Start with what you know and take what you learn along the way and add it and test out things. Limit your technology in the beginning. Don't try and put too many tools in when you do your first design. As tools become available, start playing with them, start fooling around with things, start testing things, explore strategies and approaches and tools, see what works, what doesn't work. And don't overwhelm yourselves and don't overwhelm your students. At the essence, everything you do should come back to the pedagogy and the learning and the understanding, because learning is not memorizing, learning is understanding. So make sure that you keep everything aligned from where you create your outcomes, to your rubrics, to your evaluations and assessments. Make sure everything follows a straight line. You'll be fine. And that is it from me. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me.